Welcome to today's webinar. Today's topic is financing/paying for college. It is my pleasure to introduce Julie Shields-Bertina to you. She is the Senior Director of College Planning, Education, and Training at MEFA. Julie has been with MEFA since 2007 and is a nationally recognized subject matter expert on planning, saving, and paying for college. She leads the college planning team, assisting families, colleges, K-12 schools, and community-based organizations. Prior to joining MEFA, Julie worked for the College Board, Nellie Mae, and American Express, and was the Director of Financial Aid at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. She holds degrees from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and the Harvard Graduate School of Education in Cambridge. Just a couple quick things before I hand this over to Julie. I'm joined by my colleague, Jennifer Duran, also from the Office of Economic Empowerment. We will be in the chat answering any questions that you may have. We will have moments to pause to take those questions. Additionally, we're going to have time at the end for questions. And just so you can enjoy the presentation today, know that if, as a registrant of the workshop, you will receive a copy of the presentation. Additionally, you will receive a record of today's webinar and additional resources.
Thank you, and so good to be here with all of you. Thanks so much. And I will just start by telling you a little bit about MEFA, because we're going to talk about a lot of things today, but I want to make sure that you have resources to be able to follow up on and think about in the future. So MEFA has been around since 1982. We are a state authority, and our mission is to help families plan, save, and pay for college. And we have a number of products, I guess I'd call them, such as we have some college savings plans, the U Fund and the U Plan. We also have a savings plan for people with disabilities called Attainable. And we have loans, private loans for families who need that type of financing to finance a college education if other financial aid and federal loans don't quite meet all of that. And then everything else we do is we provide free guidance and resources to families at whatever stage you're at the college process. So I will give you some resources that you can follow up on with MEFA in the future. So when I thought about this webinar, we have about an hour together. There's so much we could cover about college financing, but I thought I would put together some really concrete steps that you can take as a family to put yourself in a good position to either go to college yourself or to finance a college education for a student. And sometimes it's a combination of both. So we're going to talk through these different topics and some of the decision making in each of them. So the topics are really saving for college, researching all of your educational options, understanding financial aid, and then paying for college, and then in some cases, loan repayment and loan management if you've taken out a loan to finance a college education, which these days many people do because of the high cost. So let's start with saving for college. So in general, my team at MEFA, we talk all the time about the most important concrete step you can take if you're thinking about college for yourself or others is to start saving. And there are so many reasons why, and we've listed some here, that will just give you many more educational options. There are so many different types of colleges, and you'll have more choice and more options the more that you save. Also, your savings, you'll be able to see, will be directly opposed to the more you save, possibly the less you need to borrow. Maybe you can eliminate borrowing, or you can borrow less, or you can just borrow federal loans. So keep that in mind, that the more you save, possibly the less debt you will take on. And then also for a student in college, the more savings you have, maybe the less the student will need to work. And, you know, research has shown that students who work a little bit, say 10 to 12 hours while they're a full-time student, that doesn't hurt their education at all, and in fact can sometimes enhance it, enhance time management, enhance skills. So a little bit of work is great, but if a student is finding they really need to work a lot to keep up with paying for college bills, then that can tend to maybe draw out the experience. Maybe the student can't be full-time anymore, needs to be part-time. Maybe the student's going to take longer to finish. So again, savings can help in that way. And
Julie,
what you'll, yeah.
Julie, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just can't, I think the share might not be enacted. We just can't see the slides. I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I don't mean
Oh,
to throw off your
no,
thought.
I'm
I know
so
the
glad.
slides are great.
All right, let me
Yeah, sure.
see.
Take your time.
Yeah. All right.
Looks good.
Great. Okay. So now I'll go through what I had just gone through. I won't talk them through, but you'll be able to see. Here's the slide about MEFA. You'll see all of this, our topics of the day, and now we're going to talk about saving for college. Okay, great. And two more reasons it's a really good idea to save are that number one, you're going to see why this is, but your college savings has minimum impact on financial aid eligibility. So you'll see that. And lastly, there's been a lot of research done that shows that if a child knows that their parents are saving for college for them with that intention, they're it tends to motivate them to do better in school. And there are even studies that show that it's out of the University of Michigan that students will graduate to a greater degree and go to college to a higher degree. So there is that aspirational effect on motivating a child by having some savings and letting them know that you have some savings for them. All right, and along the lines, once I start talking a lot about savings and how important that is to being able to afford and pay for college, the first question I usually get is, well, if I save, isn't that just going to hurt me in getting financial aid? And people, will talk to a neighbor or someone who will, these myths are out there that don't save, then you just won't get any financial aid. And it's absolutely not true. So when you're applying for financial aid, the biggest factor in determining financial aid eligibility is parent income. So that the income of your family does have a fairly large effect on how much need-based financial aid you will receive. But savings is counted to a much smaller degree. So you shouldn't worry about that. You will see that by saving, you really are helping yourself much more than that's going to count and affect you negatively in the financial aid process. And another thing that I sometimes hear families say is, I see all these news reports that number of colleges here in Massachusetts costs $90,000 per year. That times 4 times 3 children. I mean, this is just crazy. I can't even begin to think about that cost. So maybe it's not worth saving at all. And that's not true either, because you'll see that there are many ways that families pay for college, and savings will be a help toward that. So don't let those news stories or that official high cost without taking financial aid into consideration scare you as far as not having a lot of feeling empowered. You should feel empowered and know that every little bit of savings is going to help you in this process of paying for college. So in general, we find that families pay for college over time. And let's just take this very simplified example. If there is a $10,000 college cost, you could, for example, save about $6,900 over time and earn interest, and your family could pay that college cost that way. So you start saving early, you earn interest, and that's how you have the $10,000 to pay that cost. If you aren't able to save, what tends to happen for other families is you might need to borrow that 10,000, and then what you'll do is be paying interest on the other side. And so the cost then to you as a family is more. So just a way to think about it, that all families pay for college over time. And the more you save, hopefully, the less you'll need to borrow. So, what are some strategies? Well, one is to start saving as early as possible. I'm going to show you an example of that. Maybe start with a goal in mind. I'll leave you some calculators that you can think about researching colleges and costs and thinking about what you reasonably feel as a family you might be able to save for your children. And then that take advantage of unexpected funds. So, for example, let's say that you're a parent and your child is in daycare when they're really young, and then they graduate and go to kindergarten and they are going to a public school. Well, there's some money that you were paying daycare and now you won't be in kindergarten, perhaps. Maybe you add that to your college savings. So, as maybe you get a raise and you're able to add that to your college savings. So you don't have to start out early on saving a high amount of money, but you just have that commitment to saving whenever you can and adding to it over time. It is helpful to use automatic transfers when you're saving. You might do this in other places in your life that instead of thinking every month, do I have any extra money to use to save for college? Just setting up a savings option and having money come out of a paycheck or a bank account every month automatically so that you don't even pay attention to it and it's just going in there. That's super helpful. And then these days, there are so many options for being able to ask others to also help and contribute if you're saving for a child, for example, at birthdays and holidays. People sometimes want to give a gift, and for you to say, what would be great is a small contribution to the college savings account. And there are ways, this simple sample gift page is from the Fidelity U Fund site, ways that you can have a site and people can go in and contribute there. We even have now in CVS stores, we have gift cards, right, with all the other gift cards at the front of the store where you can give someone a gift of college, and you can say for $50 when if someone's going to a birthday party, can bring that in a card. We all know we have plenty of toys around our houses when we have young kids, right? And then as your child gets older too, really keeping that conversation going with them so that your child knows that they want to contribute to the process once they start to get a job babysitting or lawn yard work or something like that. So I'll ask this question, and I don't know if I'll be able to see it, but I know you'll help me there. So I'm going to give you a scenario and see what you think about this. So here are two people. We're going to have Julie and Jonathan. And let's say I started saving $50 a month in a 529 account when my child was first born. And Jonathan, who is my colleague, let's say he saves $100 per month in a 529 account, but he doesn't start until his child is in second grade. Who do you think will have more money saved when his or her child turns 18? So I'll give just 30 seconds to maybe put in the chat or in the Q&A what you think the answer to that is. Do you guys see any thoughts that people have?
Nothing yet. I'll
Okay.
keep my eye out.
All right. Well, let's see. I will tell you the answer. So again, I started saving $50 a month in a 529 when my child was born. And that means I will have 21,536 when my child turns 18. So I will have contributed 10,800 and earned almost the same in interest. Jonathan, on the other hand, saving more per month, $100 per month, but he waited until his child is in second grade, and you can see the difference. He, at 18, his child will have 19,700 in that savings account, and he will have contributed 13 and earned 6. Now, this is just assuming some, a monthly savings rate and an investment return of 7%, just for example. But the point here is the sooner you start, and if you can start when your child is really young, um, the more you'll be able to save. So even if you save a small amount, just getting in the habit and having that automatic withdrawal, that's going to be a benefit to you in college savings. So I'm going to talk just for briefly about the two college savings accounts we have here in Massachusetts. I'm actually going to start on the right with the MEFA U Fund, which is a 529 plan. So 529 is the number in the tax code. And every state, I think every state but one, has a 529 plan. Some even have two. And these are plans that allow you to save for qualified higher education expenses. And that includes a lot of things: tuition, fees, room, board, books, supplies, equipment, to start with. And you can save all the way along as your child is growing up, and you're never paying taxes on any earnings. So these are investment accounts, and hopefully they're earning money. They can also lose money because depending on how you invest, but hopefully you're earning money and you're never paying taxes on any interest that you earn. And then if you take this money out when your child is about to go to college, or throughout their college experience, and use the money for any qualified expenses, all of the ones I just listed, plus a few others. You can actually take it out and use $10,000 for K through 12 expenses. You can now use $10,000 to pay for a student loan at the end. You can use it for apprenticeships. There's even a way now that if you don't use all of the money, you can roll it into a Roth IRA on the other end. So it's very, very flexible about how you can use this money, but as long as they're qualified expenses, then you never pay any taxes on the money you earned. And if you're saving over a long period of time, that can be a big difference to a regular bank account where you're having to pay taxes on your earnings. To open one of these accounts, you don't need a certain amount of money. There's no annual fee. You can just, in the Massachusetts option, go to fidelity.com/ufund, or you can call, and the application is fairly simple. The biggest decision you need to make is how you want to invest the money. And some portfolios maybe might be a little riskier than others. Some might be more conservative. And there's one certain type of portfolio that's called an age-based fund, which automatically starts out being a little riskier when your child is young. And then each year gets more and more conservative, so that when your child is, say, a sophomore in high school, there's less risk that you're going to lose a lot of money in that fund because it's automatically being invested in more conservative investments. So the 529s are really a great way to save because of the flexibility, because of the tax benefits. So many options, and you can use the money at any accredited college in the United States and even some international colleges. So really good option, and you can look into that further. And again, there are options in all other states as well. The U plan on the left, that is a prepaid tuition plan that's a little bit unique here in Massachusetts. And what this allows you to do is buy certificates based on the cost, tuition and fees only, but the cost of a college when you're investing, when you're putting that money in. So if your child is 10 and you're putting in the money, then you're going to buy a certificate, and that is going to lock in a percentage of the cost of colleges and universities at that point. And then that percentage is locked in so that by the time you need to use this money for college, no matter what the tuition and fees have increased to at that point, you're locked in on that percentage. And you don't need to choose a college in advance. You will receive a report every year that says of all of the colleges, and there are over 70 here in Massachusetts, public and private, of all of the colleges that are part of this U plan, here is what percentage you're locked in currently, and you'll receive that report each year. So that's another great way to save. And this is invested in Commonwealth General Obligation bonds, so more of a conservative investment. So you can take a look at that as an option as well. And here are all the colleges that participate in the U plan. And lastly, with that one, people will ask, what if your student doesn't go to one of these colleges? And if that's the case, you can withdraw your money and receive your money back with CPI interest, which is Consumer Price Index, kind of a lower rate of interest, but you get interest back. Both of my children happen to go to colleges out of state, so I withdrew the money, received my funds back with interest, and then I used that to pay the college bills. One more
Julie,
addition. Oh yeah,
just a question on that while we had that slide. We had a question, what's the latest age you can start those plans?
great. Really 5 years before you want to begin using it. That's a great question. So it's better to start them younger so it can be in there for 5 years. But you could even start it as late as 8th grade, but then you wouldn't get to use it until maybe the last year of college. So the money does need to be in there for 5 years. With the U fund, the 529 plan, you don't have to have that. You could start even when the student is in college if you wanted to. But again, the longer your money is in there, the more chance it has to grow. And I'll add this too. This is for anyone who's having a baby. There is a way you can open a U fund account or a U plan when you in the first year of your child's birth or adoption, and you can get $50 to start this account. So if you know anyone in that situation or you're in that situation, make sure to open your savings account in the first year, and you get an additional $50 seed account. And really why this program exists here in Massachusetts, and I think it's so great, is that there are some families who are thinking about saving for college, even, right as their child's born. But a majority of families maybe are busy with many other things at that point in their lives and maybe don't think about starting to save for college early, even though it's a great idea. So this is a way to really hopefully promote that early on so that families do start saving early. And this is called the BabySteps Savings Plan. And that was started by the State Treasurer's Office. All right, and lastly, I talked about the federal tax benefits that you don't pay interest on the earnings that you earn. And there's also a state tax benefit, and that is that if you contribute to the U plan and the U fund, there is a state tax deduction up to $2,000 for married filers and $1,000 for individual filers. So that's also a helpful tax benefit. All right, so there's so much more to learn about savings, and I'll give you some links at the end, but just know that savings is a good idea. And I've never ever heard anyone say, I wish I hadn't saved as much for college. I always hear people say, I wish I saved more. So let's talk a little bit about another thing you can do that this one I always say may not seem like it's a financial decision, but it is. It's a good one. And this is talking about how to go about the college process when your student is in high school, especially when they're maybe a sophomore, junior, which is researching college and career options. We meet many families who are just overwhelmed with the cost and maybe put off thinking about it because it's stressful, and then senior year just try to jump on board, and the students looking at their friends applying to college, and they start applying to college. But I can tell you that as a student, if you really think about what options you have and what you like to do, think about yourself, your skills, your goals, what you think you'd be good at, look into different careers. That can be very helpful in looking at colleges and college options and non-college options for yourself, and really casting a wide net so that you make the best decision for yourself. And that if you do choose college, not only will it be a great choice academically, but also financially. So you want to start thinking about that early and keep it fun. And here are 4 different websites that you can use to just research colleges. In all of these, you put in information about yourself, what you might like, and you start to get um, lists of colleges that may apply to you. I'm interested in engineering. I'm interested in being a nurse. I like art. And you can learn a lot about colleges, and these websites will share lots of information about all of these different colleges before you even do more fun things like going on college visits and finding out more information. And this is MEFA's tool called MEFA Pathway. It's free. And again, you can go in here, take some skills and interest assessments. It's kind of fun and interactive for a student. You can explore careers. There's a college search in here, all kinds of great information. So you can go in and say, I am a student, and create a free account and play around in here. Very good tool. And again, here's that college scorecard, which taking Boston College will just give some information about it. How many undergraduate students? Is it in a city? Yes. It's medium sized, high graduation rate, 92%. That usually means that the college gives a lot of support to their students. And then not only does it give the total cost, it gives sort of an average annual cost for most students, which is taking into consideration that a lot of students receive financial aid, which is key. And there's something else on college websites called a net price calculator, and all college websites have them. Some are better than others. The more detailed they are, probably the more accurate they are. But what you can do is, if you're interested in a college, you can go on the website, type net price calculator into the search button, put in some information about yourself. Some will be financial, some may be academic. And then the calculator will spit out some information to you saying, okay, here are the direct costs. Here's what you might potentially be able to receive in grants and scholarships based on the information you input. And here's an estimate of the financial aid you could receive, and here's an estimate of what you might need to pay. So even if a college sort of sticker price says $80,000, this net price calculator might come back and tell you, well, you as a family maybe are going to have to pay around 22 or something like that. So this is just good in thinking and planning about, you know, how you will pay for college. So these calculators are great, and I would encourage you to use these. And so these are the questions, again, early on, you want to be asking of a college, you know, what is that cost of attendance? What is the net price I might be paying as a family? What financial aid applications are required? Does the college give out need-based aid, which would be based on our finances as a family? Do they also give out merit-based aid based on maybe if I'm a very strong student is the number one reason people receive merit-based aid is your grades in high school. But it could also be sports or music or other things that make you an attractive candidate. And there are ways you can start looking for outside private scholarships as well. There are online search tools for that. Don't ever pay a fee. That should be free to just play around with some online private scholarship search tools. Or ask in your town, your high school, parents, employers, because there sometimes are other organizations that will have some private scholarships too that you might be able to apply for. So I'll stop for a minute, just if there are any questions before I talk a little bit more about financial aid. So financial aid specifically is any money that's going to help you pay for college. And I already started talking about it a little bit, but mainly three types: grants and scholarships are money that is just given to the student and the student does not need to repay. So that's the best type. That's what you're really hoping for. But there are also programs like federal work study, which allows a student to work on campus and get paid like a regular paycheck, maybe working 10 to 12 hours per week. And that allows the student to pay for incidental expenses, you know, shampoo, bus fare, pizza, all of that, which isn't one of those billed costs, but is a cost. A student has to think about all of that. So any federal work study or work programs are terrific for students. And then there are federal student loans, which loans never feel um, like financial aid, but one specific type of loan, the federal student loans, are considered part of your financial aid. And I'll share why on the next slide. Oh, I'm going to go right here. And that's because the student is the sole borrower on federal student loans, and there's no credit check done. No one's going to check to see if you have credit. You're going to be awarded this loan based on the fact that you're going to college and likely will get a job afterwards and be able to repay. So these are considered part of financial aid. And if you do need to borrow for college, this is really where you would want to start, is with these student federal direct loans. And you can see on the right that they're not unlimited. So those stories that you hear about people having hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt are not just from an undergraduate education with a federal student loan, because there are limits. So the freshman year you can borrow $5,500, then $6,500 sophomore year, $75 and $75 junior and senior year. So if a student took out all of their federal student loans as an undergraduate, that would be about $27,000 they'd be borrowing, which translates into about a $300 payment after graduation. But the other thing that's special about these loans is that there are options for repayment. So there are also some income contingent options where if you aren't able to make that $300 payment, then you can get a payment amount that's a percentage of your income. So that just allows you to manage your student loans and be able to take that first job that you want to take and build your career from there. So right now, these student loans have a 6.53% interest rate, but that changes each year. But once you have a loan at a fixed interest rate, it stays at that interest rate. So I'm going to go back two more and just say a couple of words about other grant and scholarship aid that's need-based versus merit-based. And I already described it a little bit, but need-based aid is going to be awarded to your family, to your student, based on the information that you complete on the financial aid forms. That's financial information. And your merit-based aid can be awarded to the student in recognition of a student's achievements. Again, the first being those positive high school transcripts. So the better a student's grades in high school, the more options they may have to receive merit-based aid. And as well, if students do sports or theater or art, things that would put them in a good place for admission to a certain college, that can also help with merit-based aid. And the aid that we're talking about comes from many sources. So when you apply for financial aid, you are applying for federal aid from the federal government, Massachusetts aid. The colleges and universities have their own financial aid. You're applying for all of that. And by completing the financial aid process, you're applying for all federal, state, and college aid at once. So that's nice. And then it's the college who kind of pulls that all together. The one type of aid that's outside of that is what I mentioned, outside scholarships. So a couple of examples: MEFApathway.org, fastweb.com, bigfuture.org are all scholarship searches you can go to look for some outside monies. But again, the bulk of your aid is going to come from federal, state, and the colleges themselves. And you can see that big number, 177 billion was awarded in 22-23 to students. And these are the forms you'll use to apply for financial aid. Every college requires the FAFSA. So you will definitely complete the FAFSA. This year it was available December 1st. Hopefully we'll be back to October 1st, which is what it was for a long time before. So hopefully next year it will be October 1st. definitely have to complete the FAFSA. And many colleges require an additional form in addition to the FAFSA, which is called the CSS profile. And you can find information about that at cssprofile.org. And colleges sometimes have their own specific financial aid application too, maybe a one-pager for certain scholarships. So make sure you look on a college's website for that. And this is, as I talked about, savings being a huge step. Applying for financial aid is a huge step to how you will pay for college because there is a lot of financial aid available. And the way it sort of works about how much you can receive as a family is there'll be a total cost of attendance, tuition, fees, room and board, books, supplies, transportation, all of that. And then from the information that you put on these financial aid forms, the FAFSA, maybe the CSS profile, it will be a calculation, and the number that comes out at the calculation is called the student aid index. That's the amount that roughly these forms will say that your family can absorb in educational costs. So the cost of attendance minus your family's student aid index is then your financial aid eligibility. And that number, financial aid eligibility, is what the colleges use to make a financial aid award to you. And I'd like to just share this additional positive information that is really relatively new. Basically, the state of Massachusetts has added new programs and new money and has more money than it's had in decades in financial aid for students. So one thing that's huge, and there's a website that you can go and look into this a little further, but Mass Educate is making community college free. That's tuition, fees, and a potential book allowance. Not room and board, but tuition, fees, potential book allowance for all students. It started as Mass Reconnect program for students over 25, but now both programs exist and no age limit required. Mass Educate means free community college as far as tuition fees and potential book allowance for all students. So that is really a great option for many, many students, especially because if you look further down, there's something called mass transfer, where students can start at a community college and then transfer to a four-year college, keeping it very affordable all the way through. One thing I'll say is that you need to know that you do need to complete the FAFSA, even if you're going to community college, which I keep getting questions about that. Well, if it's free, why do I need to complete the FAFSA? That's going to look at my finances. And that's just because that's part of the process. And you might be eligible for federal financial aid. So the state wants to make sure you get all of the aid that you're eligible for before they fully make tuition fees and a book allowance free for you. So just keep in mind, community college is free, but your ticket is the FAFSA. You need to complete the FAFSA form. And then in addition to that, there's something called Mass Grant Plus Expansion. And I guess all you need to know about that is making four-year public education in Massachusetts even more affordable for low to middle income students. That can mean if you are especially if you're a low income student, but even if you are a middle income student, maybe up to family income of between $70,000 and $80,000, you can receive more grant to cover up to all of your tuition and fees and a book allowance at a four-year public institution. So that's huge. You can learn more about it at these websites, but just internalize that public education has become much more affordable, and especially for low and middle income students. One more piece I'll tell you is that also the tuition equity law in Massachusetts has made it so that students who are not eligible to complete a FAFSA, either because they have immigration issues or they're undocumented, as long as they have 3 years of high school in Massachusetts, and a few other criteria, but they can possibly complete not the FAFSA because they're not eligible, but a form called the MASFA, MASFA, that will allow the student to be eligible for in-state tuition and state aid, not federal aid, but state aid. So that's another bonus here in Massachusetts. And lastly, I'll just mention Tuition Break, which is a program through the New England Board of Higher Education, which allows students to cross state lines and attend a public flagship, usually in a neighboring state. And sometimes, depending on the program, if they can cross the state line, for example, go to Yukon in a certain program and pay in-state Massachusetts tuition. So it's good to look at that website as well. And if you're interested in any of the programs that qualify there, you could keep tuition down even by leaving Massachusetts. So some of these conversations I see, here's how these would play out between a parent and a student. Yeah, check out what is each school that you're interested in? What is the net price? You know, what do we think we'd have to pay as a family? Students, what is your option? Do you want to go to a 4-year or 2-year? Do you know what career you're interested in? Are you more open and you'd like to explore that a little bit? Look at all of the options available to you, and at that point, don't shut any off. You know, keep your options and your choices open. And when you're putting together a balanced list of colleges, again, go with that philosophy of keeping your options and choices open. If you do that, you're more likely to be able to have a financially affordable option, not just one you totally love. I mean, you need to have one you love for academics and socialization, all of that. But you want to have make an affordable choice. I'll just give an example. This happens all the time, even though we advise against it. I sometimes say, don't fall in love with one college, because if you do, um, and, and it comes back that you don't receive really enough financial aid to make it affordable, that could put you in the position of making a not great choice for yourself as far as affordability is concerned. So instead, if you keep options open, then you might find that your second choice school that really you loved a lot too is putting together a financial aid package that's going to make it affordable for you on top of that. So you just want to keep that open mind and fight a little bit against falling in love with one specific school. Fall in love with a couple. We talked about starting a community college, which, you know, free in Massachusetts, that can save a lot of money. Parents, when you're thinking about how much you can help each of your students, you need to think about, you know, if I support this student, how many more do I have coming up that I need to make sure I have enough for them as well. If you are taking on loan debt, which many people do, and you know, especially yeah, because costs can be expensive, and financial aid sometimes doesn't cover everything. A lot of times it doesn't. Think about 4 years. You're not just taking that loan for the first year when you're in the process of making that decision, but instead, you probably are going to need to take that on in the future as well. And I've just heard from a lot of college and school counselors these days that sometimes taking a gap year can be a benefit, so a student can think about this process. Everything sometimes feels very rushed in those senior years. And students, really think about yourself and what you need and how you learn, and making a decision about attending a smaller school versus a larger, or a larger versus a smaller that's going to suit you better. You really want to pay attention and think about yourself and what's going to work best for you. And all right, we'll go through this last section and then we can open it up for some questions. But this is quick just to talk about how do people pay for college. So one important step, and this is a great tool, so I like to share it, is that once you apply for financial aid using the forms we talked about, then colleges will make financial aid offers for you, and you'll receive a lot of those. And what you want to do is really take the time to compare those options. So this is MEFA's calculator, or you could do it yourself on a spreadsheet, college cost calculator, where you can then take, I think ours does up to 6 schools, and break down all of the costs. Here's the tuition and fees, food, housing, books, supplies, health insurance, other costs. Get the total cost, and then put in all of your financial aid. And then at the bottom, it will show you what you will need to come up with as a family if financial aid didn't cover everything, which is many times the case. And then you'll be able to compare, say, 6 colleges side by side to see, really the difference in what you're receiving from these different colleges. And that might mean that then you go back to your first choice college to ask for more money. It might mean that you just really say, oh, I liked my second and third choice colleges just as well. And look at all the money they're giving me. I'm going to go to that open house. I'm going to learn more. But really taking the time here to compare your financial aid awards, to ask questions of the financial aid administrators. Feel free to go back and ask for more money, and just learn. So continue your learning, and so that you consider affordability in your decision. I think you'll be happiest if you love the school and it's good academically and socially, and it's affordable. And these are the ways that families pay for college. Number one, financial aid is a big part of that. And then number two, your past income, anything you've saved is really a blessing at that stage in the process, I can promise you. So your savings and other assets you might be able to use to pay for college. Present income, sometimes families might have room in their budget to pay a little bit each month, and colleges have something called a monthly payment plan that isn't a loan. So you can sometimes use that and pay that way. And then future income, which of course is loans. And we talked a lot about the federal student loans, but there are also parent loans or family loans that a student parent might decide to borrow together over and above those federal student loans. So all of those ways are how families pay for college. And because loans, can end up being a part of your educational costs and what you do to finance college, I'll just say a few words about loan repayment and managing that. So when you graduate from college, hopefully you're able to get a job. You usually have some time, usually about 6 months after you graduate before you have to start paying educational loans. So that gives you some time to look for work, decide what your next step is going to be, and then figure out, are you going back to live at home? Are you getting an apartment with friends? Are you, do you have transportation? Are you getting a car? And you really will want to come up with your post-graduation budget. And what you'll need to do then is factor in your loan payment. And that might affect decisions of where you live, how many roommates you have, if you can purchase a car, or if you're going to take public transportation. So you want to be factoring in that loan payment to your post-graduation budget. And then what you want to do is just get a handle on knowing all the loans that you have. So you will find many times there's a servicer who's going to service your loan, and they're going to send you information and say your first payment will be due on November 1st, and here's what it will be. And so you just want to make sure that you set up any accounts of the loans that you have, use all the tools that people use these days, mobile apps, and again, figure that into your monthly budget, and be very on top of when that first payment is due. With federal loans, here's your website, and you can look into this now, studentaid.gov, and that gives you all kinds of information about your federal loans. You can choose a repayment plan. Remember, I said there were options. So based on your income, if they tell you your payment is going to be $280 a month, maybe you say, great, I'm going to do the standard repayment. I can afford that with my job. Or maybe you say, that's high as I'm just starting out, and I really am not I need to live in an apartment and that rent is a little bit expensive. So then you can look into some of those other choices for repayment plans. And there are all kinds of calculators on here to help you find a repayment plan that's going to work for you. The key is setting it up, not being late with your first payment, um, being in touch with your servicer if you have any problems paying, ask questions, all of that. So all of this is really important for your federal loans. And also, if you have private loans, oh, this is still I'm sorry, this is still the federal loan calculators and these simulators that can help you choose the best repayment plan for yourself. And then with your private loans, it's the same thing. You can ask your financial aid office for a list of your private loans, find the servicer, you know, download the app, go on the website, set up your account, all of that. And again, you want to know what your payment amount is and what your due date is, and be ready to make those payments. And if parents and students were on a private loan together, you can have that conversation and decide. Maybe a parent, just making this up, but maybe a parent says, I'll make that payment for 1 year while you just get up and running on your feet, but then I'm expecting you're going to take over those payments after that. And you can work out something like that. Um, so that's how that will work. Lots of communication between family members, between you and your servicer, and never just be afraid and do what sometimes seems like human nature. If you have trouble making a payment or something, you cringe and you push it aside and don't want to think about it. Don't do that. That's the only option you shouldn't do. You want to get on the phone, you want to call, you want to email, you want to talk about what are my options if you have any problem. And the reason for that is that the good news about if you do borrow a loan and you pay it back, that does help and give you a credit score. And if you pay it back and on time, that can give you good credit, which will help you in the future when you want to take a mortgage or car loan or something like that. So, so your student loan can help you build credit. So that means if you pay them back on time, it can, if you have good credit, sometimes you can get lower interest rates on future financing, and it looks good for landlords. Whereas if you do the opposite and you aren't paying, or you're paying late, or you just decide to not pay at all, which is default, that will give you a bad credit score. And that will also affect you negatively in the future and could mean you're always paying higher interest rates, or you're not able to take out a loan in the future. So you really want to stay on top of your credit and allow your student loan repayment to work for you and help you in that way. And also know, besides just, your payment due date and the amount, there are many options with these federal student loans. So go to that website and really look into all of your options. And some federal loans can be forgiven in certain circumstances. And so usually it's for one of two reasons. It means you're doing a job that might be at a nonprofit, something like that, or it could be if you can't make a payment, so you have to make a lower payment that's tied to your income for a period of time, and after a certain point your loan debt will be forgiven. So there are all kinds of options like that. So you want to just pay attention to all of your options. You can even start reading about that as a freshman in college when you're first taking the loan. They'll have you do an entrance interview, which will explain all of this to you. So just always have a good understanding of what you're doing with your finances. And here are some of the common student loan forgiveness programs. And again, pay on time, always pay the minimum. If you pay more, that's always good. If you pay the loan off sooner, it'll be less interest in the long run. That automatic debit that we talked about on the savings side can also be used with paying your student loan, where you just set it up to automatically come out of a paycheck or a bank account. But you just have to know that that's happening and budget accordingly. I mentioned that there are many different types of qualified expenses for your 529 plan. And one of the newer ones is that you can pay up to $10,000 in student loans off. That's a one-time, but that's if you have any money left in your 529 plan after you graduate from college, you can use it to pay up to $10,000 in your student loan. If you have loans at different interest rates and you have an option to pay more each month, you should definitely put those additional amounts toward the higher rate interest loans. So that was a lot to get in here, and I want to leave it open for some questions, but hopefully that was just an overview of a lot of different things you can be thinking about. And here are some resources from MEFA. So you can sign up for MEFA emails. You can either use this QR code or go to the MEFA website. You can always register for MEFA specific webinars at mefa.org/events. And there are always a whole lot of webinars upcoming that you can register for and that you can view recordings of past webinars. And then you can always visit mefa.org for so many resources on all of these topics about college. And we're on social media. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, X. Instagram is a place we put a lot of outside scholarship information. We're also on LinkedIn, YouTube, and we have a MEFA podcast. It's just called the MEFA Podcast. And we have good guests on about all kinds of topics. And you can always call us or email us with short questions or long things you want to discuss. We are a free resource to you, no matter what stage of the college planning process you're at. So I don't know if we have any questions, Jennifer, Carrie.
Yes, we can definitely open it up to the chat for any questions they have any.
I never want to miss an opportunity to share a compliment. About midway through the presentation, someone in the chat just shared that you were doing great, Julie. So I just want to make sure that was shared.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot to cover, but I hope, yeah, hopefully you can take it from there with whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really resource-rich follow-up email. And I think when we get the recording, I know that there's a lot of people that I've talked to in my life that there's a lot of relevant information to where they are in their journey. So I think this will be a really great recording to share out with people in our lives. Great information. All right, I don't see any questions, but again, there'll be great contact information in the follow-up resources as well. Great. If I could just share, okay.
I can stop sharing. Yeah.
We do have a question before we, but yeah.
Good.
She shared, thank you for a great presentation. How soon can a high schooler apply for FAFSA or fill out that form? I know that that's a big part of this.
Great question. So you can't fill out the form until you're a senior. And again, I'm hoping going forward, it will be an October 1st launch every year. So I would advise families sort of be prepared to complete that in October. And the CSS profile is also available October 1st. So senior year, October 1st.
Great. Thank you. I just have a couple, excuse me, a couple slides to share. The participant said thank you for the answering the question. All right, just a couple slides from OEE. Thank you so much, Julie. Again, great information. Really appreciated your time today.
Oh, you're so welcome.
A lot to cover today and from previous workshops. So just a reminder to anyone who's been here before or anyone who is new, as part of Worth and Wealth, we are happy to offer a 1 hour or up to 1 hour of financial coaching with an accredited financial coach. Her name is Oriana Falkowski. This registration will also be in the follow-up email. So if you cannot grab that code, do not worry. It will be in the email. And again, that's open to everybody. Next week, we are doing job search basics, which is kind of a nice synergy with today's conversation. Quick tips, resumes, cover letters, interviews, same time, 12 to 1, again, in the email. So do not fret if you cannot grab that code. It will be in the email. And then just a reminder, we have free access to digital financial education through the Office of Economic Empowerment. There is a fantastic scholarship search tool that we can connect again in the resource email. It's my favorite phrase today. So please sign up. Great information on there. And then lastly, when you leave the webinar today, you will have the opportunity to fill out a survey. Very helpful for us to get that information back so that we can continue to offer great programming. So please take a moment to fill it out. Julie, thank you so much. Thank you for everything that MEFA does. Great information.
So happy to be here. Thanks so much, everyone.